This is the CreaseCast.
Welcome, ladies and gents. It's another episode of the CreaseCast. I am your host and your only host, the only host you actually care about, Cody Severson. We got a lot to cover today, but before we get into the NHL free agency, Canucks free agency, we have ourselves a guest and an employer of some of ours. The man with all the goalie takes. You may know his work from CanucksArmy.com, or what was the Blue Jays site you wrote for briefly?
Blue Jays
like,
Nation.
Okay, Blue Jays. Yeah, okay. He's the leader of the Nation Network. All right, he does a lot of stuff for them. All right, it's Mr. David Quadrelli. David, thank you for joining us on short notice. Really appreciate it because obviously there's a lot going on in Canucks Nation. How are you doing, my good friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. I mean, this was usually the time I'd be playing Warzone, so yeah, it was easy for me to make some time today.
Well, we will not keep you too long because I understand the pull of the zone of war. So I understand why you would not want to stay for too long. So we'll get right into it because obviously Canucks a week away from the draft did, whatever. We're pretty much done day 2 of free agency. And so there's some moves were made. So I wanted to pitch the question kind of broadly to everyone, but we'll start with Mr. David himself. We've had 48 hours or 24 hours at least to sit on day 1. What are your thoughts? What's your overall vibe check on the Canucks day 1?
It's a good question. I've thought about it a lot, and when I first saw Ilya Mikheyev sign that contract, my immediate thought was, oh boy, they just overpaid for a penalty killer, essentially, is what I thought. And yeah, he scored 21 goals last season, but what's the ceiling there? Honestly, I've given it more thought. I've watched more of Mikheyev's tape, and I'm kind of looking at it in the sense of, look, he was playing on the third line in Toronto. Sure, he may have been getting some weaker matchups in that role, but the matchups between a third and second line really aren't that crazy different, especially if you consider that Elias Pettersson's probably going to be playing most of the matchup minutes for this team. So presumably if Mikheyev's riding shotgun on either Bo Horvat's wing or JT Miller, whoever it is that's the second line center for this team in the fall, I'm kind of looking at it in the sense of, okay, I'm almost wondering now if this is going to be another, and not in the same impact as JT Miller, but another acquisition that the Canucks make where they lean on their analytics department and say, okay, with JT Miller, we saw a player who's being underused in Tampa in a third line role. And if he's given a bigger opportunity, we think he can explode offensively. I'm almost wondering if that's similar to what went into this move, if it was a similar kind of idea. Because listening to Patrick Allvin speak yesterday, I think they feel that he's good for at least 15 to 20 goals every season in that contract. And, can he do more than that? I think the team believes that they're going to get more than that from Mikheyev. So, I mean, I didn't love the signing at first, and I think that's your only gripe, right? It's just where is this team at in their process right now? And I think the way they kind of look at it is, okay, if we're competitive in 2 years, Mikheyev in years 3 and 4 of that contract is still probably going to be a pretty serviceable middle six winger. You're not really going to get too much. It won't be a super volatile player, I don't think. You're not going to see him go pot 20 goals in a season and then he'll have 3 the next. I think you'll see kind of consistency from Mikheyev. And like I said, at worst, he's a really fast penalty killer.
At worst. I mean, that's the upside, right? It's everyone talking about, well, he's really fast. There's that clip of him chasing McDavid. We got that going, right? Right,
hey,
guys?
listen, there hasn't been enough fast guys on the Canucks for a while. I remember that series against the Knights where Alex Tuck was just beating every single player to races, and he was almost single-handedly beating them in that series. So I'm happy to see the Canucks going out there and actually looking for a lot more faster guys to put on the ice. I think overall, the moves that they made were I think pretty good. Of course, a lot of the thing of the stuff with the Canucks right now is that it's more about the moves they haven't made yet when it comes to what they're going to do with JT Miller, is Tanner Pearson, Connor Garland, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, are all those guys going to be here come October or September, I guess. And that's kind of still everyone's kind of still waiting on that. And it kind of feels like it's not it's unresolved so far what the Canucks are going to be next year. But as far as the guys they picked up, and apparently they just picked up Christian Wolanin in the last half an hour before we started here. On
A huge
deal.
signing right before our show. We should have broke it if we
Yes.
had the time. Unfortunately, we couldn't. I was going to ask you, Quads, because you've had Raymond Ferraro on your show before on the Canucks Conversation. His famous line was, "What is the plan with the Canucks? It seems like the no plan. And I was reminded quite heavily of the no plan comment yesterday. So in your modest opinion as a managing editor of Canucks Army and Daily Faceoff, is there a plan based on what you've seen through, 1.5, almost 2 days?
Well, I can tell you Ray Ferraro's not going to be saying that about the team now.
I guess he can't, right?
Yeah, not if he wants dinner.
If he doesn't want to sleep on the couch, I guess. Yeah, he's got to be
and we should say, all joking aside, credit to Cami Granato, right? Because she basically took on John Weisbrod's job, and by all accounts, it's looking a lot better so far. Full credit to Cami Granato, all joking aside. But the question about what's the plan for the Canucks and are they following it? The plan, look, it's to clear cap space, right? They've been honest about that from the start. It's let's rebuild the defense. And I'm hesitant to say they're not following the plan. I think they might be being extremely patient in the plan, which I guess is a step up from what we had before in this market. But at the end of the day, if your goal, it's self-admittedly for them, is to clear cap space, you didn't do it at the trade deadline, aside from Hamonic, that's only $1.5 million. You didn't do it at the draft. You didn't do it in free agency so far. Jim Rutherford's alluded to the next couple weeks, teams will be circling back. I don't know if he's seen the signings that have happened, but that's that's not super likely. It's looking like for a lot of teams. Of course, anything's possible. But as for the plan, no, they haven't cleared cap space. They haven't rebuilt the defense. So I think they do have a plan. It's just that they haven't hit any of their goals yet, if that makes sense. The goals that they set up themselves throughout their many media availabilities, where they said they wanted to fix the D, they wanted to boost the depth, and they most importantly wanted to fix their cap structure. And so they've rebuilt the depth when it comes to their bottom six, and they're 13th, 14th defensemen. But the real building blocks haven't quite seen those moves yet, but those seem to be the most important. When the Mikheyev deal, Mikheyev? What is it?
You can just call him Soupy. That's what his teammates called him.
I'm going to call him Mickey. Okay, so Mickey, they signed him to a contract, right? And I kept thinking, this reminds me of when they signed Tanner Pearson ahead of doing the Pettersson or the Hughes deals, when it was you didn't really need to rush out and sign Pearson. You should have probably done the more important thing first. And so I was kind of wondering when they signed Mickey, I was like, could this have waited? Was it that essential to get it done that you improve your bottom six first? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys can chime in, though.
Well, I'll just kind of jump in here because, and look, I know it's probably coming from an agent, but Rick Dhaliwal even threw out there today that Mikheyev's not going to be a third-line player for this team. And by all accounts, he's not. He's going to be in the top six for this team. And, if not, he might be on the third line at most, but I wouldn't necessarily refer to him as a bottom six player, if that makes sense. I think you're going to see him playing maybe in the bottom six if someone really impresses in camp. But I think when Bruce Boudreau is kind of chalking up his lineup right now, he's probably going to want a pretty speedy, hardworking winger to go with Bo Horvat on that second line. So I get what you're saying. It doesn't bode well for the plan that's the first order of business. But I'd almost be more concerned if they and again, I don't think it's a rush and if you do it at the trade deadline or the draft, but I think a lot of teams are looking at the Canucks right now and saying, what are you going to do? You want to do all these things and nobody wants your crap players that you've basically said publicly are crap. And that's the problem that the Canucks are running into now is nobody wants their players. And I think Alvin basically said as much, or maybe it was Rutherford on 650, whoever it was. I know somebody in Canucks management recently has said publicly, nobody wants our players. There's no market for our players. We don't really know what to do. The Canucks didn't get a call about JT Miller on free agency day. Alvin said that publicly. That's not even a report. That's just something Alvin was nobody called about JT Miller. And it's Wow, nobody.
Yeah, oops.
Like, nobody who maybe was like, oh, we get the sense Kadri's going to sign somewhere else. We get the sense this guy's going to be off the market. Nobody. Like, nobody hit them up. So it's, what are they going to do now? You kind of have to stick to the plan because you've almost painted yourself in this corner. But I would also argue that it wasn't this management regime that painted themselves in this corner. It was the past management regime that painted everything but the corner. And then Jim Rutherford came with the tiniest brush and just put a little bit more on it.
He's doing his best, right? Like that's the thing. It's like the bar was set so low by the last 8 years that like even like a Mikheyev signing probably would have been like seen as a win in the last regime's eyes because it was like it's a a drastic improvement on their free agent like acquisitions. Like player identification has always been a problem in free agency, and this seemed to be like a step in the right direction, which is good. But it just kind of runs counter to like everything you're saying, right? So obviously they're doing their best, but it seems a bit like all they're kind of doing is just building a lot of insurance, and JT Miller might be insurance for all those guys that you're saying like are trying to go out for Kadri or they were trying to go out for Gaudreau or whoever it was. And now that they can't, maybe we're entering circle back season again and he'll, land in Colorado or something in a month and a bit, or like, you never know. I don't want to get Jamie excited, but one of the other, pieces of insurance I was thinking of, because we have Lachlan. Unfortunately, there's 2 goalie people on this podcast today. So apologies to Chris Faber if you're listening to this while you're driving to Abbotsford or wherever the fuck you're driving today. They go out and acquire Colin Delia and Wyatt Kalynuk. I'm really bad with pronunciations apparently, but a guy named Wyatt and a guy named Delia, a Deli guy. This feels like insurance in case DiPietro walks, and we've heard a lot of stuff. You've been reporting quite a lot on the DiPietro situation. You I don't want to say you cornered the acting GM of the Vancouver Canucks into admitting that they won't be running 3 goalies, but he basically admitted that DiPietro's as good as gone. So I want to get your take on where do you think DiPietro, like, is there a slight chance that DiPietro comes back, or is he as good as gone?
Okay, so I talked to Ian Clark today. So you guys are getting the exclusive because I haven't written about this, I haven't talked about it or anything. So I've got a lot of thoughts on a Kukas Genvo, but I'll save those. Sorry, Cody, made you spill out your drink a little bit there.
That's like the second time he's done that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's at least twice so far.
He's not used to being on the show with funny people.
Yeah, it's strange.
But as for the question about Colin Delia, like I asked specifically about Delia, and I said like, look, Patrick Alvin told me yesterday that there are going to be 2 goalies in Abbotsford and 2 goalies in Vancouver. And like I asked Clarky straight out, I said, what's the advantage of having 2 instead of 3? He said, well, 3 doesn't benefit anybody. Like it doesn't really benefit the club. It doesn't really benefit any of the goalies. He goes, look, if you're a goalie, you need to play. Like I don't care who you are, you need to play if you're a goaltender. So, obviously they're looking at the ECHL. They're not, when they say that, what Alvin said to me, he's not saying it in the sense of, yeah, so we're going to trade a goalie to make sure we're at 4, but
right.
He didn't have to say it.
In so many words, right?
There's been a lot of interest in Mikey DiPietro. There was interest at least. I don't know if there's still a lot. I really don't know that. But look, like it's no secret that Artur Silovs is someone that the organization really values. And like he's somebody that, again, when I was talking to Ian today, Ian even said like he hasn't played much in the last 2 years, and we had taxi squads and we had all these, these crazy things, all COVID related for the most part. And it's just, look, like Artie hasn't really played, and these are prime development years. So I think the goal is to get Artie into games next year. And look, like Spencer Martin's not going anywhere. Colin Delia is not going anywhere. Like neither of those guys that are on one-way contracts are getting loaned to the ECHL. So now you get down to Mikey DiPietro and you get down to Artur Silovs. I could see a world where Artur Silovs goes to the ECHL and plays a ton of games. Like they just put him in a situation where he's going to play a ton of games. There's value in that. It's not like it's, there's more value with Artur Silovs going to the ECHL from the start of a season rather than rolling with 3 goalies in Abbotsford. And then toward the end of the year, you say, wait, maybe this guy should play. And then you put him into the ECHL. Like you need to have a plan right from the start. And based on the answer from Alvin, I think they do have a plan. I think they're going to stick to it, whether that be an ECHL loan or it be a Mikey DiPietro trade. I can't imagine a world where Colin Delia or Spencer Martin are moved, and I definitely can't imagine a world where Artur Silovs is moved. So do the math. Like the only one I haven't mentioned is obviously Thatcher Demko's not getting moved either, but Mikey DiPietro, like he kind of seems like he's primed to be the odd man out. But I did find it really interesting to get that answer from the Canucks general manager yesterday, just flat out telling me that they're gonna pull 2 goalies in Abbotsford.
Interesting. I'm very curious. You were at development camp today, I believe, and yesterday.
I was, yeah.
So you've had some time to put your thoughts together. You were obviously very confused, I should say, about the acquisition of Ty Young. Is that his name?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I've clearly done all my research prior to this interview.
Yeah.
So they draft Ty Young. You weren't really sold. How are you feeling after day 3 of development camp and having him seen, take on, Klimovich and some other actual like decent shooters?
So I kind of felt like a dick because when I first evaluated him, I didn't look at his birthday. I didn't realize he's like one of the youngest players in the draft. Which is hilarious because of his name. But this was a guy that the Canucks looked at and just said, like, he's athletic. He's also like 17 years old and he's already 6'3", and they think he might still grow. So there's that potential.
Jeez.
He's athletic. Yeah, he moves. So for me to come out and like, I looked at the tape and I was just like, all right, so he doesn't move well. He doesn't have great technique. I was like, and again, like there's a guy like a Kukoskembo who you see that, but then you also see that when he stands, his arms like dangle to his kneecaps. So you're like, oh, okay, why we would like a guy like that.
Yeah,
but
fair.
But I didn't really see that with Ty Young. And then I met with him at dev camp and kind of talked to him. And look, like this is a guy who's very aware. Like he's not like, yeah, no, I'm fine technically. People just don't know what they're talking about. I'm great. Like unprompted. I didn't say anything to him about this. He said to me, he's like, I know my technique and my movement isn't good, but he's like, but I'm really coachable and I have a really good work ethic. And I, like that bodes well for a project goaltender. It does, right? And like, you'd like to see some more, I guess intangibles isn't the best word, but maybe I guess natural abilities. But I think the Canucks kind of view this guy as somebody they can work with and maybe turn into something. But again, like this isn't a guy who's gonna, be knocking on the door anytime soon. Like he's still probably gonna be a backup for a while, and now he has some new things in his game. But what I was most impressed with was just at camp when I was watching him was on day 1 compared to the final day of like all these new concepts he's learning, like all these new ways of moving, all these new techniques for post integration, all that sort of stuff. The way he was just applying it right away, like it was pretty impressive that he was just immediately doing the things that Ian Clark wants his goaltenders to do. And I know obviously he wasn't doing them perfectly, but the work ethic's there. Like you could see it right away. So for him to say, like, again, in the conversation I had with him, he said, like, look, I know I don't have the best movement, not the best technique, but like one of the biggest reasons I got drafted is because of my work ethic and coachability. So I asked Ian about that specifically, and he said, like, yeah, I fully agree. Like that is probably the biggest reason. So, it was good to see him in person because when I watched the tape, I was like, what are we seeing here? Not realizing that he was only 17.
While you're talking, I thought I'd check in on the other kind of unproven goaltender of the Canucks system in Matthew Thiessen. I don't even want to really read out like his stats in the NCAA because it feels like I'm mean. But he's got a 113-4 record, and it's like a sub 890 save percentage. So Quads, I'm sure you haven't looked at much tape of Matthew Thiessen, but is there any chance he's cracking the AHL anytime soon?
I love when I get asked about Matthew Thiessen because it sounds so mean, but this was a pick that took place before Ian Clark was part of the organization. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, okay, fair. That's about as polite as it gets. Ian Clark didn't pick this guy.
Yes, exactly.
BC before Clark.
So if you're listening to this program and you ever want to get Matthew Thiessen like a graduation gift, get him a shirt that says Ian Clark didn't pick me. Just to remind him.
Oh my god.
Jesus.
Please
Gonna be on his,
Cody,
that's gonna be on his
brutal.
graduation cap now.
Please don't actually do that. Anyone listening to this, please be nice, okay? Other things that the Canucks did on this free agency day, a friend of ours, Phil DiGiuseppe, gets brought back on a 1-year deal. Obviously, there's the Italian connection. I'm just kind of wondering, does this feel to you like them being like, hey, sorry, we didn't get you into NHL action last year? Like maybe they were like, probably should have given him an actual look, but both times he came up to the NHL, it was like the COVID outbreak one time, and then the other time, like, he broke his like shoulder or whatever. So like the 2 times they actually wanted to look at him, nothing happened.
Yeah, I think this is a case of running it back. I don't know if it was sorry we didn't get you in. I think it's we'll try to get you in, but you have to earn it. And I think it was just a situation that Phil likes. Like, look, like, say what you want about Abbotsford if you live in the Lower Mainland, but like for AHL free agents, it's pretty good, especially when you're just down the road from Vancouver. Like, look, like it's not a bad spot to be in if you're an AHL player. So I think there's the comfort level for Phil, and I was honestly a little bit surprised for the reasons you outlined, Cody, that he really didn't get in any games, that he would return. But I'm curious to see what they could do. I told him about Commercial Drive. I haven't talked to him since that, so I'll see if he's gone back there, if that's one of the reasons he's staying.
That's the only reason. He's like, oh, you know what? I was supposed to go to that place that Quad suggested on Commercial Drive, and I just never did it. I need that second chance, baby.
I did name drop a panini place to him, actually.
Ooh, what panini place, if you don't mind me?
La Grotta Formaggio on Commercial.
Well, that sounds much better than what I just ate before we started recording. So I might have to hit that up sometime over my vacation in the coming weeks.
I will say, Quads, I always worry a little bit when you give food reviews to the players, because I can never forget the one time when I forget which player it was exactly, but they asked about poutine, and I think you suggested McDonald's to them.
No, I don't.
Was that you or was that Faber? Was that Faber?
That sounds like a Faber thing for sure.
That might have been Faber. Somebody did. Somebody did.
It was Faber, but if I'm remembering correctly, Jack Rathbone asked us the best fast food poutine, and I said A&W, and I think Faber might have said McDonald's. Or maybe it was the other way around, and I did tell him it was McDonald's. I don't know. I can't really remember. But McDonald's.
Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews on it before.
Have you ever had it? It's okay.
I've had it once, but I was like, oh, it's okay. But it's like it's still McDonald's fries. It's still like with like gravy on them.
It's a good
base. Picturing like Jack Rathbone. You never had poutine in general?
Oh no, I have. I haven't had fast food poutine.
That's about to fall out of my chair there.
I was like, wow.
I am Canadian, done. So I have to eat it.
Yeah, a bit of a traitor with the Colorado Avalanche shirt, but I mean, hey.
Yeah. I have a question.
You know why?
All right. Yeah. I have a question for you, Quads. Outside of like Mikheyev obviously being the biggest signing they made, and like Kuzmenko and Delia as well. Like as far as like the kind of like the contracts that have flown under the radar, do you have one of the guys that they've signed that you think could be like really interesting to watch here?
I think it's Dakota Joshua by a country mile, and someone, I think it might have actually been Cody. I can't remember who. I asked for like a bit of a scouting report on Dakota Joshua, and it was he plays exactly like what Canucks fans think Will Lockwood will be like, and I think that might have been Cody, but that sold me. Like, he's a big guy, and it was so funny because I had this conversation with Daniel Wagner yesterday. Like I was like, I really like the Dakota Joshua signing, and Wags went, oh yeah, like he has really good underlying numbers. And I said, I don't care. He's tall and he's big and he can skate. Like, and Wags did make a point. He's like, well, the analytics back up your eye test. And I was like, fantastic. Because I don't care if he can score. You want someone on your fourth line who can go out there, actually throw his weight around and not be a complete liability on the ice. And I think that's what they have in Dakota Joshua. And Alvin was asked about the signing yesterday, and he said, I don't look at this as an AHL player. Like, this is an NHL player in my eyes. So, look, if you're replacing Matthew Highmore, who got to love the heart, but I get it, whatever. You've got to love the heart on Matthew Highmore. But if you're replacing that with Dakota Joshua, it's like, if that's a sideways move, it's great. I like the Dakota Joshua signing a lot. I think he's going to be a good fourth line player. Like they just need someone who's physical. Like they need someone who can throw their weight around. You know what this team needs? Size. And they get it with Dakota Joshua.
You know, you know what's ironic too is that the Blues actually went out and got Highmore.
Yeah, that's right.
It's basically like both teams were like, we can't afford both guys qualifying offers, so we're just gonna switch players. And I guess the Canucks kind of got like the better deal because Joshua's scoring like rates at the NHL level are actually pretty good considering his minutes, and like St. Louis Blues aren't exactly running like a high-end fourth line. So if he can come and actually provide like a scoring punch that sorry, Jamie, I don't mean to disrespect your boy here, but Matthew Highmore wasn't exactly lighting it up without Tyler Mott as his center. So it's probably a good pickup for them, provided, they throw, I don't know, Dickinson with him.
I just want to say, like, Tyler Mott's still out there, guys. And we think the ask is high.
This is true.
He is.
Where is he going?
He's like, not signed yet.
Like no one has interest in him right now?
I mean, there might be teams interested, but then when they ask what he wants on a contract, it might be that's where the discrepancy is. So, look, like, I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but if you're the St. Louis Blues, are you not at all interested in bringing Juho Lammikko in on a two-way contract, just like you had Matthew Highmore, so with no risk contract? You can just bury in the minors.
That's the worst like for
getting. Yeah,
maybe that's what they're trying, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can replicate the Canucks like most successful line, for like league minimum, like why wouldn't you? I was gonna say though that it was interesting that the Rangers put out, I don't know why they did this, but they put out like a graphic being like thanks for coming basically, and tweeted out the list of guys they weren't re-signing, and Tyler Mott wasn't on that list. So maybe they're still trying to bring him back on like some kind of 7-year ungodly $35 million contract like they did for Vinny Trocheck. But I'm sure they still want to retain him because he's good. But it would be very funny if the St. Louis Blues were just like, hey, yeah, we like that line. Let's do that for cheap.
Honestly,
that would end me.
Yeah, I thought that was
I'm retiring.
Yeah, I thought Calgary, that was going to be Calgary's thing, is they were going to go after more Canucks, and replace Johnny Gaudreau with Mott, Highmore, and Lammikko on one line, and just
That's
be like,
yep. Worse.
And
I want to paint
just...
a picture.
Okay.
The Juho Lammikko, Matthew Highmore, and Tyler Mott line reunite at Rogers Arena when the St. Louis Blues visit town. They hem in all four lines at various points in the game, and they win, and Mott scores a hat trick. That's my prediction.
Oh, that's exactly what's going to happen. Like that. Yeah, that sounds exactly right.
But
Pedro yells, "I told you so! I told you so!" the whole time from the bench.
Yeah.
But Dakota Joshua registers a team leading 7 hits in a period, and it makes it all worthwhile.
Exactly.
Yeah, and 3 shots.
Yeah.
I'm sure you haven't seen this, but it's a complete tangent. But have you seen Dakota Joshua's first NHL goal? It is so funny. It's like he just like crashes the net and he's just standing still, and then like a puck bounces off his chest and into the net, and he's like, yeah. So it's so good. You got to check it out. It's really great because obviously I think he spent like time in the ECHL first, then the A, and then was just kind of like middling, and then all of a sudden he's just like, oh, I'm an NHLer now. So maybe brings that intangibles, the Zach McEwen effect, if you will, but actually is good.
I have one last question for you, Quads, because we were already kind of talking about like how Tyler Mott's already still out there and everything, and like the free agency has been wild in general this year. Like they're close to $1 billion in contracts handed out already in 2 days, which is insane for the NHL. Is there what signing that another NHL team has made is like been the most interesting to you?
Interesting. That's for lack of
or
word.
Crazy. It could just be Goodbranson. Well, you could just go with Goodbranson, call it a day.
I was gonna say Goodbranson is interesting for all the wrong reasons. It's just like it's interesting in the fact of who did they think they were calling when they made that call and offered a contract, and like whose call was that? And I heard Jarmo Kekalainen talk about it, and he said like the same thing we've heard every GM that acquires Eric Goodbranson say is, yeah, he's big, he can lead, and they left out the he's handsome part, but you have to think that's playing some sort of factor at this point, because holy smokes, this guy keeps getting contracts. And look, give him credit, he was solid under Darryl Sutter last year. Like, Like if you look at the numbers and the analytics and everything, he was like one of the better third pairing defensemen in the league last year. But you don't take a guy who struggles his whole career when he's put in the top 4 minutes, finally goes to the third pair and performs well, and you say, whoa, he can play top 4 for us. Like, that's not great team building. Like, it's not a great philosophy when you're constructing a roster. So I'm really interested to see, I guess, who he plays with in Columbus. And I guess that's an interesting signing that another team made. But I guess the other one that's kind of surprising is Johnny Gaudreau, right? Like another Columbus signing is, why did he want to live in Ohio? I don't think that question's been answered to its fullest yet.
He did kind of desecrate Calgary on his way out in his immediate availability today. Was he saying we decided it was best to not return to Calgary?
And we decided that, and we decided that a while ago. Yeah, like it was one of those it's like as if Calgary wasn't hurting enough by being shown up by the Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams. It's like, oh, they're just kicking them while they're down at this point. And I think that was I think somebody was saying that Goodbranson signing actually had partially to do with the Gaudreau one where Gaudreau wanted him in Columbus. I think which would explain why they gave him 4 years at least. At least then we'd have an explanation on why, right?
Johnny wanted him to protect him.
He has a track record of doing that very well, right? Remember when Pedersen, had his shoulder broken or head broken? Yeah, Goodbranson was there. Yep.
Yeah, guys, you don't understand. Goodbranson will fight. It's like, no, he has 3 fights on hockeyfights.com.
But he's very handsome and he's made a killing over the course of his career. Quads, we want to thank you for showing up to our rinky dink little podcast. It means the world to us, buddy. Why don't you tell the listener, if our listeners don't know your work or where to follow you, I don't even know. I judge our listeners for that, but why don't you tell them anyway where they can find your work?
Go to CanucksArmy.com. Read the work of Lachlan and Cody on CanucksArmy.com. We're all pumping each other's tires here. That's what you need to do. But definitely also subscribe to the Nation Network on YouTube because Faber and I, we've been making those stand-up videos, and a lot of people in the comments have a lot of feedback for us that we jokingly, in a way, apply to every next video that we do. So someone commented, they're like, get rid of the mic flag. So we got rid of it. And then people are like, where's your mic flag? So we put it back on. So now people are telling us to put a sticker on it. So that's what we're doing for our next video. So subscribe to the Nation Network on YouTube.
Yeah, you hear that, guys? They will do anything you say in the comments. So you just, if you want them to wear one of those, a full-blown Halloween costume, they'll do it. That's what they're saying. Get one of those T-Rex costumes.
There you go.
They have a gritty costume on Amazon now.
No, they don't.
Wow.
They do.
That's terrifying.
Are we talking?
Quads, are you ready?
Yeah. Are we talking a good gritty costume here? Or are we talking Spirit of Halloween $20 gritty costume?
Yes. Yes.
Ooh.
I have to look this up later.
Let's definitely avoid that. Quadzilla, we'll catch you hopefully down the road at another date, maybe before training camp. Who knows? Until next time, buddy. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. All the best.
Bye, dude.
Bye.
Bye. Aw, what a doll.
What a nice fella.
I'm not just saying this because he's my boss at Canucks Army, but that guy knows how to edit my nonsense into something actually legible. I was actually talking about this in one of my chats with him. I was like, we were talking about editing or whatever, and I was like, I talk in run-on sentences, and writing something and submitting it to Quads feels like a hate crime because I cannot have a good, well-structured paragraph to save my life. And so writing stuff is just a laborious nightmare as I try to make it not in my head voice, because my head voice is there's no periods, there's no commas. It's just complete nonsense.
Yeah, it's just one long paragraph of and it's just and then it'll just go in a completely different direction. That would be me if I started using speech to text for articles. Oh God, suddenly I'd be just talking about oh my God, I went for a walk yesterday and I saw this dog and it was this really fluffy dog. Like it was just,
and then it just like pivots into different like branches and tangents that make no sense.
yeah, exactly.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I do use a speech to what is it? Speech to text,
text.
text to speech, whatever. Speech to text on your phone. Because I tried to use that, and you'll be like, remember to grab milk, and it'll be like, remember chicken stew.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that is not what I said. I'm enunciating. Damn it.
Yeah. They're getting better. Like Otter is the best tool in the world for anyone here who's
Otter's very good.
Also a journalist. Otter is the world's best resource in the entire world. But even then, like sometimes I'll be like, what the like I'll try and just go off of what Otter has written without like listening to it, and then it'll be like, what the hell is this? Like it'll just be something else. It's
very helpful, but for hockey, like because a lot of hockey like people
names.
Like speaking of run-on sentences, like a lot of hockey people, when they talk, they'll start a sentence and then they'll think of something in the middle of their sentence and pivot. So when you're trying to transcribe a quote for an article, usually it's like complete nonsense. Because the sandwiching, the bread of the quote, shall I say, actually formulates a good quote you can use, but the middle section is just filler words, and you're like, I can't use this. What are they even trying to say? Doesn't make any sense.
Like I've noticed from using Otter, and literally because like especially lately, quite a few of my articles have been like breaking down stuff that the management or the coaches are saying in like press conferences. Like I can now like tell what like because everybody has like some crutches that they use when they talk. And words that they'll kind of just throw in as fillers, and it's just kind of a bad habit that everybody has in a different way. And now I know what each one is for like each
player, or like GM or whatever.
Yeah, like always comes up a lot. That especially with hockey players, is a very common one.
Well, I always like feel bad. Like, I mean, I made fun of it a lot because like I thought I did like a really good Jim Benning impression, but that is one of the downsides of being a GM for a market for so long, is that they pick up on your filler words or your like abbreviator words where you're just like and stuff. And because 8 years of Jim Benning say and stuff, it's just like worked into your brain where you just think it's really funny. I'm sure if anyone listened to me, they'd be like, man, this guy says but a lot or whatever, or dude.
For me, it's like I use it all the time, and it's something I'm trying to work out of.
It's what?
Yeah.
See, that's the problem. Once you point it out, it's a complete nightmare, and you can't escape it.
Yeah. What is really nice though that I've found is when I listen to other people's stuff, and because I'm looking for it, I'll notice it. But I found that I don't actually notice as often, especially with like other podcasts and stuff, when they do it. So it's one of those things where, if you're searching for it, you'll hear it every single time and it drives you bananas. But then you realize, people don't actually care that much. You're fine. Like,
like you'd have to be like those people in like our replies on Twitter. No, maybe not you, Lachlan, because you're under 1,000 followers, but Jamie and I definitely. When you'll tweet something and they'll just kind of like they'll pick at you. They'll pick at like, what did I tweet earlier today? I was like, it was Tristan Nielsen is 2 goals and 1 assist at development camp. And I was like, just a reminder, he got scratched during AHL playoffs, like LOL. And some guys like, Cody with the narratives. I'm like,
classic negative Cody over here. It's like I'm being
this is a narrative. This literally happened. Just because I point out something that actually happened doesn't mean it's a narrative. I'm just pointing something out, man. Like, fuck off. God.
You and your narratives, Cody.
Me and my absolute negative.
You and your storylines, just like always
cooking, always cooking something up.
Not to make this into like boohoo poor media person or like hour or something like that, but I always think it's very funny when people are like comment like, oh, this isn't a story. Why are you doing this on an article? It's like, well, you read it. Like you're reading it, so clearly it's a story. Like, you could have not clicked on this, and you did anyway. So it's like, but it's very funny when they're like, "This isn't a story. You're just making this into one." It's like, okay, well, you cared enough to look at it, so clearly it matters in some way.
So I was like, I commend, and also I don't commend like someone like Thomas Strantz when, he like defends to the death, like, like a pretty standard take. Like he's not even actually like I was saying about my thing. He's not actually like forming a narrative or an opinion. He's just like the Canucks have $79 million allocated to 27 players. And someone will be like, you're so
Ready,
fucking negative, you piece of shit. And he'll like argue with them. It's like, they don't even understand what you're tweeting. Like, save yourself the energy. Like, go outside. It's beautiful out. It's like really hot out. Like I am.
Yeah.
You can't really see it, but like I'm getting like radiated with the heat off of my what it's supposed to be like, what are these called? Blinds. Window blinds. Man. Yeah. Anyways, let's why don't we get back to actual hockey? So our listeners aren't just like angrily shutting off our podcast, but they're like, they're kind of like, okay, they're getting me back. They're about to talk about something I actually care about. They're reeling us back in. Look, we didn't even talk about Curtis Lazar, but I mean, who cares?
We didn't. But because honestly,
it's such an uninteresting signing,
and it's what? It's uninteresting in a good way. Like
that's true, very true.
We have how many times on this show, Cody, have we had to spend on? Well, the Canucks traded for Oliver Ekman-Larsson's $8 million contract and have to devote a whole show to that because even though it's not the thing they should have been doing, whereas like here with like Curtis Lazar, 3 years seems a little bit long for what you're getting, but at $1 million like per year, that's nothing. Like that's a good depth piece.
It's basically the contract that fans were hoping they would sign, through the early years of Pettersson and Hughes' years, instead of going out and spending the Benning special 4 years at $3 million on Jay Beagle or Antoine Roussel or, whoever the fuck it was. They instead went for something cheap. Like the team, like who was it? Washington. They just let Beagle go and then signed the guy the Canucks had, Nick Dowd,
like
a 3-year, like $750K contract, and he was like producing like triple what Beagle did over the same time. Like that's all they needed to do. Just needed to be cheap. Like they could have just promoted Brendan Gaunce. He would have provided the exact same value. He was a right-handed center, skated just as poorly as Jay Beagle. So like the difference is like completely negligible.
But has Jim Benning heard of Brendan Gaunce? Is
it Jim Benning?
I vaguely heard of Jay Beagle, so therefore he's good.
He's a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, he's a champion.
That's what was paraded, right? It was like when they signed Beagle, it was like, he brings a championship pedigree because he's won at every level. And it's like, you know how you produce players like Beagle? You have better players. And then you elevate like garbage like this guy. Like he had 1 point or 3 points in the playoffs when the Caps won. Score? Yeah. He didn't do anything. He just won a few face-offs. Come on.
The thing with Beagle was that under the amount of money he was making, he was good for what he was. Like he was good in that role.
Yes.
But the second you're like, oh, you know what? This guy is the missing piece to this team. We need to give him all of the money we have to come here. You've missed the point, and that's why that's definitely why
like the Curtis Lazar deal. You're like, great, you've signed him to a contract that like isn't bad, and you're not going to immediately lose value. But the Mikheyev deal, you're like, oh, you've immediately lost value because you paid a premium betting that he's going to be as good or better than he was last year, his one standout year. And as we all know, players typically, before hitting UFA, really outshine their previous year's performances because players want to get paid. I'm not saying this is why Nazem Kadri blew up with like 120 points or whatever the hell it was. But
Nazem Kadri is still not signed anywhere.
That's because he's looking at everyone. He's looking at everyone. They have slide presentations for him from every team.
I love that.
He's going full LeBron James.
That was so
good. Looking at everyone.
That was like his agent's tweet. It was like his agent was like, we're fielding a lot of presentations. And in my head, immediately, I was just like hearing Benning say slideshows. It's just like PowerPoint, like pictures of like him like poorly photoshopped on it in like a a Devils jersey scoring a goal.
Some picture from a stock image site that has the watermark on it. Like it's all in like Comic
It just looks like
Sans
complete
font.
shit, but it's like the best they could do on
Yellow
short notice.
yellow text on like a white background. Like
Comic Sans, you know.
Yeah.
Let's see here. You know what
Memes
is
from like 2008. Like
graphic design is your passion.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm picturing. It's like, oh god, that's what's happening right now, right? Like Kadri's sitting there with his agent and like it's like, oh, they used Excel, like get rid of them. Like they didn't even try. Like
you know who has the cap space to acquire Nazem Kadri right now? The Ottawa Senators.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
That'd be amazing. Insane.
So we were talking in our chat because
they're winning the cup.
So we're gonna quickly touch on NHL free agency. I think instead of going over every team, we're all gonna pick like a winner and a loser instead of going over everyone because
some teams did nothing.
If you couldn't tell by the last 16 minutes since Quads left us, we like to ramble a lot, and so going through 32 teams would be fucking impossible. It would be a 9-hour program, and we don't have time for that because some of us have lives. Some of us,
not me, but they do.
Not our editor in chief, Lachlan Irvin, but definitely myself. Every waking minute is a ticking time bomb for when Murphy's gonna bark and go nuts. So it's we got to play it fast and loose here. But Nazem Kadri, could you imagine the Ottawa Senators just say, you know what, we don't need to improve our defense. We have a bunch of plugs making $750K, whatever. But they go out and in a single offseason, they go DeBrincat, Giroux, Norris, Kachuk, Stützle, Batherson, Kadri.
Good.
Like that that's your top 9.
Yeah.
That is filthy if you can pull that off.
Here's the thing. I think you're 100% right that that's what's going to happen because not only do they clearly have the cap space to do something like that, it's also the kind of signing they love because it's a middle finger to Toronto, which that's so
true.
Which
Battle
is
of Ontario is going to be even better.
It's been very one-sided for years, and now they actually could they would so do this. And Ottawa had maybe the best, they've had the best offseason of their entire history here a little bit. Because
it took them nearly 20 years, but they're finally there, baby.
They've done it.
No, yeah, and you can ask why that is, but there are certain things that it's like, well, maybe there's reasons why, but we shouldn't talk about those reasons. Instead, we'll talk about why, it's
one
great
very
that
specific reason.
One very specific reason. And they're very
you could say their reasoning for improving was 6 feet under.
Oh, Cody, good Lord.
Bum, 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 bum.
I was trying to very carefully dance around that.
Well,
let's be real. Finally spend money.
They can finally spend money.
Yes.
They've entrusted the operation to Eugene Melnick's daughters, and I'm sure they're looking at this investment going, you know what's going to make us money? Spending money. You gotta spend a little money to make a little money. I am looking at their cap friendly page. They do need to re-sign Alex Formanton, who is a player. Matthew Joseph, who was very good last year for them in a very brief period of time, and Eric Brandstrom. So they might not have the cash to get Kadri. But, if you try and flip out Austin Watson to the Philadelphia Flyers, I'm sure they'd take him because, he's a tough guy. He fights, and that's all Philly's going for.
Yeah.
Maybe you flip out Travis Hamonic or you just buy him out. Who knows? But they have some wiggle room. Now that I pitched this, I am begging for this to happen.
Yeah.
Because the Kadri to the Sens and then you have Matt Murray on the other side as the goalie for Toronto. The sheer spice.
Victor Mete is
so
a Leaf
good.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Victor Mete is the real key here. That's the one that
he's going to
really
save the Leaf franchise.
Yeah.
Well, how many players from the between the two have played for both teams now that are on one or the other? I think the Leafs have more than just him. I think there's a couple of them, besides Murray and it might have been better. Yeah, you're right. It might have been more before.
I think it was 2 years ago. It was Ottawa basically went out and signed the entirety of Toronto's bottom six.
Yeah.
It was like
Zaitsev.
it was all like the generic sounding dudes like Colton White or Connor Brown or Connor White, like just a bunch of guys whose names are interchangeable. Usually all start with Connor.
And now they're gone.
And now they're all gone.
Yeah,
because
they're
they
gone.
signed the big star.
They bought him out, or they traded him away.
Yeah, Zaitsev's
Gone.
the only one left, I think, from that group. And I think did that have to do with the Phaneuf thing? No, that was afterwards. That was after because Phaneuf was already gone.
So safe to say, I'm gonna say for all three of us, maybe you guys have different opinions, but the top of the winners of free agency week, I'd say, has been the Ottawa Senators. Even if they haven't technically done anything with their defense, maybe you don't buy what they've done in goal, but turning, Connor Brown into a second round pick, Josh Norris at a pretty decent contract at 7.95 moving forward. They flipped Matt Murray out for a couple of picks for nothing in return. Claude Giroux at $6.5 million for 3 years. Like that's and the DeBrincat deal at the draft. Like just a lot of tidy pieces of work, even if it doesn't actually address their fundamental issues, which is really poor team defense. You're looking at, like I said, one of the top sixes of the league with DeBrincat, Giroux, Norris as your top line. Like that's gross.
Yeah. And
Filthy.
then amazing. Like they have done an insane job of not only did they completely fleece Chicago to get DeBrincat. Like again, like I am stunned that nobody. I have to imagine
what Chicago's doing.
No, and that's
that's
great.
wonderful for Canucks fans, and I love that for them.
I think
that's
the
for
entire
league-wide.
yeah, you're
happy.
right. The entire league loves to see it, and loves to see that hopefully no one is planning to trade for Jonathan Taves or Patrick Kane. Although I did see something about Kane in Colorado.
No.
Yeah,
did you?
They just said that he would thrive there. There's nothing.
I think
not
they
looking
said,
at it.
Did you see that one thing though? It was like the Blackhawks tweeted out like some like kind of meme emoji, like of the guy looking behind the brick wall.
Yeah.
Like first thing this morning. So I think people were
God.
wondering like, are they actually going to do more dumb shit?
I just love the idea of them sending out this meme of like, oh, something's coming, and of course it's going to be something really stupid of them to do. Like,
I think someone in the replies was like the Chicago Blackhawks are going to trade the greatest American player of all time and tweet out some dumb shit, and it's like this emoji going like.
Yeah,
like super, like just
like
so
Urkel,
on,
just
like
a gif
so
of
accurate.
Urkel, like, did I do that?
Yeah,
like,
did I do that?
Yeah, like it's gonna be
the Blackhawks only have 5 or 4 defensemen signed for next year right now.
Oh, and one of
what are
them
they
is
doing?
Seth Jones. So basically, it's 3 defensemen. Like, look, yeah, with on the side
the
of
Jones
like
brothers,
yeah.
Their brothers are there, so
yeah.
So 2 defensemen. Okay. Okay. With Ottawa, like the big thing was like, and I saw some people going like, "Wow, that's 7.95 for 8 years with Josh Norris." Some people were going like, "Wow, that's a bit steep for what his actual like." What he's actually put up and what he's done. Yeah,
sure.
His contributions are, and it is a bet. But I think it's particularly when it comes to that contract, they weren't necessarily, I don't think they were spending money per se on what they think his value is now. I think not even just that, what they think he's going to be. I think if anything, that was a contract they signed to prove to Senators fans that they're committing big amounts of money for their future, and like with term and with everything else, because that's been the big issue for years with the Senators, is that they were never giving term to guys. They traded Mark Stone like in his prime because they didn't want to pay him a big contract extension. Carlson, Erik Karlsson, the same thing.
Their whole thing was flipping guys after their second contract was about to expire.
Yeah,
and so
they were feeding. They were the farm team for all the richer teams.
Yeah, like this year. Even when they were good, they were still doing this, right? It's just always been like they've been a cap, like a bottom of the league spender. This contract, like you're saying, is definitely like a signal to the league, like, hey, we're not a joke. Like we're committed to win, and if we need to spend money to do it, like we're going to. Hey, like I'm gonna say it again, Nazem Kadri, baby.
That's
make way.
I want it now, so I want that so badly.
If if you're
Naz, if
center
you're
group,
listening,
could
and we
could
know
you
you
imagine
are.
your center group is Josh Norris, Nazem Kadri, and Tim Stützle? Like
Tim Stützle on
on
his
an
rookie
ELC,
deal, yeah, like,
He's still on an
sure,
ELC. Let's go.
like
yeah,
that
They're
would be
winning the cup.
disgusting.
that
Or
would
is
be.
it Drake Batherson? I can't remember. Oh no, he's a winger. That's right.
Batherson's a winger, yeah.
Yeah, they have and we talked about a little bit before, like the arena. They have the new arena coming up too, which wasn't going to get done under previous ownership. Now under
Man, they
Eugene
really
Melnick
hated your
daughters.
dad.
Well, yeah, like it's straight up like it's not a coincidence that they suddenly got an arena deal done with a group that had previously stopped negotiating with them and in fact had resulted in lawsuits because of how the previous ownership ran the team and how that they expected that arena to get done. Now very quickly they've got an entire they've already got renderings going, they're very clearly intent, but you also can't do that if you don't prove to the market that you're willing to spend on a Stanley Cup team, because they're not going to just give you a free arena to be bad every year and to not spend
cheap,
any money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for them, this has been a huge year. I actually really like the Talbot signing for them because we talked about this in our group chat before, how the thing that they never seem to figure out is that when they moved on from Craig Anderson, what made him a perfect goalie for them at the time was that he could take a lot of volume for them. He was not going to win you, steal you games ever, but if you need a guy to play 70 games a year and take 40 shots a night, he's your man. And Cam Talbot's kind of that. That's kind of what Cam Talbot's thing is too. He's not flashy. He's not going to be. He's not a superstar in any way.
But he'll be fine.
He'll be just fine, and he'll win you 6-5 games all the time. And that's what you need. That's what they need right now because they have no defense.
So, speaking of defense, we're just gonna roll it back a bit here because thanks to our producing partner Jamie, we are learning from Cap Friendly at Cap Friendly on Twitter that Eric Goodbranson's contract includes a limited no trade clause because. Of course it does.
He batted his eyelashes.
Okay.
Shout out to his agent, man.
Okay. I would love to pose the question to you because this is a perfect time. Did Columbus actually win on free agency? Because I don't think they did. I think they lost big time.
They won the Gaudreau.
They won the Gaudreau sweepstakes. That's a great way of putting it.
I think they grade out to a C. Because
really? Okay.
if Goodbranson really was the reason why Johnny Hockey was convinced to go to Columbus, then who cares if it's the 4x4? If you can land Johnny Gaudreau, even though you're nowhere close to contending at a team, not a team friendly, but a pretty decent clip given what was out there on the market that he could have signed for, that's a coup. Straight up getting him for less than $10 million. When, what was it? The Flames were offering him 12 or 13 or whatever the fuck it was.
They offered big. They
offered a lot.
They backed up the drinks truck for it.
Yeah, so that's impressive for them. The Goodbranson trade or signing, it's pretty bad, but they're probably hoping to start contending when his deal's almost expiring, I would think. And Gaudreau's still going to be, pretty damn young. He's only 28 or 27?
Yeah,
he's
28. Okay. Well, he looks like he's 13. So he'll probably age quite well.
Conveniently, his number is 13.
Oh, that's how old he looks. That's sweet.
Yeah.
So, I would say, okay. We had him on. I put him on our winners list because, I was the Gaudreau contract's probably an A+ coup by them for a market that's struggled to get star players in there. But the Goodbranson probably makes them just see not a winner, not a loser, but they were a hockey team. And sometimes for a team like Columbus, just being a hockey team is sometimes all you need.
I'll say with Gaudreau and everything, you guys know, for me, I don't I've said this before on this show that I don't buy the how much people think how good people think Johnny Gaudreau actually is. I think he's relatively one-dimensional and is an absolute ghost in the playoffs every single time. This year was no exception. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His one penalty shot goal and he had the overtime winner in Game 7, which is big. But I was like, wow, someone is going to overpay so much money for a guy who had 2 goals and got absolutely shut down by the Edmonton Oilers in a playoff series. Like, oh, what a superstar.
To be fair, they didn't really get shut down by the Oilers. Markstrom just became a save.
Gaudreau did. Gaudreau got shut down. Like, he didn't have a goal in that entire series, and they were and there was one game that ended where they won 9-6.
He had a hat trick in Game 1.
Kachuk was
yeah, but
better
Gaudreau had like 4 points in that game too.
Oh, a bunch of like secondary assists. How great! Like,
all right, now we're picking.
Oh my god, are you good, bro?
I listen. I don't buy it. I do not buy the Johnny Gaudreau hype at all. I think for Columbus, this makes a lot of sense for them, specifically on the fact, like, for this kind of the same reason that I think getting Giroux and like DeBrincat and all of those things done that Ottawa's done is important for Columbus, in the fact of, like, they've been not very good for the last little while. And as a smaller market, you kind of need to show that you're willing to spend the big bucks and go out and get a big free agent every now and then, right? Otherwise, people are not going to buy into it. And that's kind of been their issue since Panarin left, right? And Panarin was the big one for them the last time around, where they was like, well, they're not really that close to competing. But them getting Artemi Panarin and actually getting that deal done, they know he's probably not going to re-sign that contract, but it was important for them to get that deal done and just win a playoff series at some point, because that proves to your market that you're willing to put the time and effort in. And I think Gaudreau makes a lot of sense for them in that regard, right? Where it's a guy who's going to come in, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys, he's going to sell a lot of tickets, and he's in himself is able to market more players, or you market him to potential other guys coming to Columbus later on.
Yeah, he'll be a great beacon for fellow 13-year-olds in the Columbus, Ohio region, that you too can make it to the NHL, and that's what hockey needs right now, is more children committed to playing hockey because they are watching a child also play hockey, and that's good. All right, let's get into the losers, or let's get into like at least one of the losers before we carry on here. My biggest loser, my team, the Winnipeg Jets, for doing sweet fuck all with Scheifele, Wheeler, or anything. They signed David Riddick, which is like, who gives a shit? And Kevin Stanlund, which is like, okay, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, literally, you can't, like, this is the crazy, like, some of the losers you can probably talk about quite a bit. But 2 of the biggest losers, you literally can't say anything because they didn't do anything. Winnipeg Jets are one of them. The Islanders are another. They literally signed no one. They re-signed, I should say, all of their RFAs that usually play with Bridgeport. Otherwise, they didn't do anything. Nothing.
Do they really even have any? Well, oh yeah, they do. I thought the Islanders were more cap strapped than they were, and I think they were previously.
Well,
did they trade somebody?
They are cap strapped technically, right? But it's like,
they have a lot of old people signed.
With no trade clauses, right?
With
so it's
high cap hits.
Yeah,
I think like they are showing like 12 million in cap space. I can almost guarantee that was purely saved or reserved for Johnny Gaudreau. And when he didn't sign with them, they were like, oh, well, I guess we just going to use that money for Noah Dobson, I guess. I mean, they have to re-sign him.
They do have to sign him,
Yeah. And Alex Romanov, who they recently acquired from Montreal for the 13th overall pick. Okay, so like, I think I was talking about this with a guy from work, but acquiring or flipping Romanov after like barely a season and a half for the 13th overall pick is such a home run move. But then flipping that 13th overall for Kirby Dach is just like no offense to Kirby Dach, but I don't think he's worth 13th overall, because I don't think he's that good. I think he's big, but like I don't think he's a good center. I think he's like
now.
Chicago.
But is that? Yeah, I was gonna say how much of that is just him having to play on the Chicago Blackhawks.
That's true. But when I was watching him in the playoffs, I didn't really come away thinking he's like a good center. I almost view him as kind of what Buffalo did with Tage Thompson, where they were like they flipped him or they made him a center, even though he's like his game is more oriented to be like a skill winger, and they were like, "Hey, we'll be a center, but be a skilled center that just like scores flashy goals. You don't need to play with your size." And he cracked 50 goals or whatever, or 40 goals or whatever it was. So that's kind of how I view him, but it's like the reverse, where it's like he doesn't have like the meat to be a center, but he's got like the flash to be like a good winger if they put him in the right situation. But it's Montreal, and I'm sure they signed him or acquired him because he's a big center.
Yeah,
because that's been their whole thing.
Yeah, and
trying to get a big dude.
And yeah, like and he's young enough that you can take time to develop him, right? So it's not like he's not coming in to be the savior of your franchise or something, which in Chicago, and based on what they thought they were, you could argue maybe that's kind of what they thought they were getting out of him. Whereas in Montreal, it's like, well, they're already very, like, I gave them a pretty high grade in their free agency this year because they didn't do much, and that's kind of all they needed to do, because they're going after Connor Bedard next year. They're not trying to win things. They're just trying to, get a couple good pieces for what they can, and then start opening that window later when I'm blanking how to pronounce his name, but their new first overall pick, who they got, which we haven't even talked about the draft much yet, which was
boring. Canucks didn't do anything good.
The Canucks did something. They did one thing, and they drafted that one guy, their one guy, Lekermaki, in the first, who was but he fell to the left a little bit. It wasn't
the
spicy
spiciest
enough.
Thing they did was draft a guy with the exact same name as Elias Pettersson.
That was very funny.
and they didn't reach for him. It was just kind of like, oh, it's kind of a meme pick. All right, cool.
I will say I almost feel bad for Repeaty, as we're calling him, because
Repeaty is a great name.
I'm like, oh, it kind of sucks that you didn't get a chance to go to another team just because now you're always going to be Elias Pettersson number 2. Like, that's gotta be a bit of a bummer. But
if he ever makes it,
which you never know. I would say, they, with Montreal, like, they've done pretty okay. The Islanders did nothing, and which was very funny. And then I sent you guys the video today of I
gotta watch that still. Their owner, like, on his
lawn or something, which I'm like, this is the most New York, Long Island interview I've ever seen, just based on that. Like, that screams like New York to me. And like saying like trust in Lou. It's like, I don't know about that.
You sure?
Guy. Yeah, I don't know. The Islanders are in a lot of trouble. But like, if we want,
Philly did a bunch of dumb shit.
That's what I was just saying. The loser this week,
the biggest loser for you,
so many ways, was the Philadelphia Flyers. Because how long again with Gaudreau? How many years have we been talking about how? Oh, the Philadelphia Flyer, the Gaudreau, when he goes to free agency, he's going to go home to the Flyers, which is interesting because he's actually from New Jersey, but I guess like there's a lot more of a Philly connection or something. I'm not sure how that works. Like for years, that was the whole thing. And like the same way that everyone's always talking about how Austin Matthews is going to go back to Arizona for some reason when he's a free agent again. But yeah, that seemed to be writing on the wall that he was going to go there. And he wasn't even the Flyers aren't even a finalist because they had no cap space because they decided, you know what this team needs? Rasmus Ristolainen and Tony DeAngelo. That's what we need. Like, Jesus.
And a 4-year deal for Nick Delorier because apparently Zach McEwen wasn't enough. They needed more meatheads who do nothing but fight.
Doesn't he have to be re-signed?
Who? Oh, McEwen?
I think they qualified him, though. They didn't say
they did qualify him. They did qualify
so
him.
He is coming back, as far as we know.
He's going to have to fight every
game. He has to fight Nick Delorier for the starting spot.
Yeah.
They'll take turns.
Oh my God. They have, guys, so they currently have 3 RFAs, which are McEwen, Owen Tippett, and Morgan Frost. The amount of cap space they currently have is $701,000.
Wait, what?
Yep.
They haven't signed Owen Tippett, and they just traded for him?
They have not signed Owen Tippett.
What?
I do not know what the hell they're doing. Yeah, what is their plan? Great question. I know
one of them.
But guys, did you hear Chuck Fletcher? They don't have any money. Like, they can't do anything else. It's like, yeah, you did that, you dummy. Like,
So
no one...
basically, James Van Riemsdyk is going to be traded to
Yep.
Arizona for like their only pick or whatever for this next year, and then they re-sign Owen Tippett to an extension or whatever. But like, why would you put yourself in that position?
Like
Any team is just going to hold them for like a
Ivan
fucking
Provorov.
ransom.
Yeah, like they're gonna be like, no, give us Ivan Provorov for nothing. Like they're not gonna just be nice to you and be like, oh, you know what, we'll take your one guy expiring next year in JVR and that's it, even because he's 33. They're gonna be like, no, you're gonna give us like Travis Konechny, or you're gonna give us Ivan Provorov or one of those guys. Like that's all they've got. Like
That's very
they have
cool.
some prospects, but no, they're absolutely screwed. Like just looking at their situation here, it's like, well, they have $7 million going to Kevin Hayes. They've got $5.8 million for Cam Atkinson, who took a picture with Johnny Gaudreau in his jersey today, which was
That's
just
so funny.
absolute.
I love it.
Chef's kiss to
It
Cam
was
Atkinson,
amazing.
who trolled his own team by taking that picture. Oh, so good. Like, yeah, they're in so much trouble. The Flyers have completely screwed themselves. It's the funniest thing. And like, we knew this was coming with them.
Yeah.
Because they did the whole thing where like, as much as like Ron Hextall isn't like necessarily the best general manager in the world, you were hearing like them when he on his way out the door, like all the old Flyers being like, he didn't want to do it the our way. And it's like, and the guy saying that's Bobby Clark, who had been the GM and already taken out of that position once. And also there is Paul Holmgren, who was also the GM before him and still there for some reason. Like, This is their MO. They just they're like stuck in the 1980s and they're never going to get out of it. Like, they're done. They're cooked.
Well, that's good. Other teams for the losers, Vegas, they didn't really do much. They just kind of bolstered their depth, but losing Max Pacioretty and Dylan Coughlin for literally nothing to Carolina.
After they traded Nick Suzuki to get him.
Thomas Tatar.
And
the 3 picks technically given up to take on Tatar, plus the picks that went out with Nick Suzuki. Like, god damn. What a bungling of assets.
Yeah, somebody posted the picture of like the horse, like that horse meme where like the drawing starts really nice and then turns into like just a kid's drawing at the end. That's the Knights. That's the Golden Knights. I do not know how George McCready and Kelly McCrimmon have
throwing people away like meat.
Yes. Yeah. Not only throwing them away, but also just like being an ass about it and being like making them like have to find out over Twitter or something like that. Like they're not even good at like the giving away the sorry we're trading you gift basket. Like they're just like, here you go, get the hell out.
Yeah, straight up. What an embarrassment. All right, the last loser here, because we don't want to hold you guys for too long. I know we rambled quite a bit. But the last loser, the biggest loser, if you will, one of the biggest losers we've ever seen, really, is Jamie, our co-host. Do you want to summarize, or shall I?
You can just do it. You can just do it.
You just get some Kleenex out, folks, because this could be a sad one. If we want to cue some free to use music that's like really sad, like the violin,
the sad
maybe some like
violin.
Rain sounds, because we're reading this outside in the rain.
Jamie, can you edit in some rain sounds and some violins?
Yeah, just some really pathetic sounding rain.
To what Cody's saying here. Thanks.
Yeah. So Matthew Highmore signs with the St. Louis Blues, as we talked about with David Quadrelli. Juho Lammikko, not even signed. He might be playing in a gulag in KHL next year for all we know. Nobody wants him at all. Andre Burakovsky, no longer an Av, and he's not even on the Canucks. He signs in Seattle for $5 million. He got paid, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't with anyone Jamie wanted. Nazem Kadri, still not signed anywhere. I didn't even want to talk about how I didn't want to put this publicly because I'm really scared of Samantha CP and I don't want to criticize the Colorado Avalanche and have her tweet me.
Never,
it's just too scary.
Big mistake.
But are we going to talk about how some of the signings they've made since winning the cup have been just fucking terrible? Like Andrew Cogliano. Like I know I don't know, Jamie. Maybe you can say I'm wrong, but he was like not really noticeable at all in their cup
He
run.
scored a couple big goals.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. But
It's
the
only
big
1
bet-
year. It's not terrible. It's not a like.
It's a league.
backbreaker.
It's like
Sure.
minimum.
But if you
not
wanted
long.
to, if your goal was to re-sign or at least attempt to re-sign Nazem Kadri, you'd think you'd be like you'd prioritize him and then work around the edges first. The Val Nichushkin contract, good for him. It's
long.
a really long and expensive bet that he's going to be as good as he was in playoffs moving forward. Josh Manson, I can't really quibble with it, but like he's 30 years old.
It's a little confusing because he did say he wanted to go back to Anaheim.
Yeah,
Like multiple times.
Which
I
makes
wonder
you
if-
wonder
I wonder if
how
Anaheim was like-
much more money they offered, right?
Well, it also makes me wonder too if Anaheim was like, no, we're not going to re-sign a 30-year-old defenseman when we are not anywhere close to contending. Like it just doesn't make sense. Which I guess benefits Colorado more, where they're like, we can pay a cup tax and at least retain him, but $4.5 million is a bit rich for a 30-year-old.
I don't
And for
think they
4
would have
years.
added a cup thing.
Maybe.
They just want to stay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
The-
still
The
are
cup tax only
technically-
applies to the other teams
Other
trying to get the
teams.
cups, trying to get
Sure,
players who
fair
play,
enough.
right?
if you want to join the team.
Yeah,
You
okay,
don't
fair enough.
take
The
a cup
Arturi
tax.
Lehkonen contract, I will say, was tiny
one's
bit of
good.
money. That's a good
That
deal.
one's
Yeah.
good.
That's a good one.
Darren Helm at $1.25 million.
Sure, why not?
He's
You
fine.
sure?
It's fine.
35.
I guess.
Yeah.
But again, the whole if you were hoping to retain Kadri, you don't re-sign Cogliano and Helm, and there's $2.5 million that you could theoretically use to try and convince him to stay.
That
But-
would be interesting if, like, I wonder if maybe, especially considering Kadri's not signed yet, I
Mhm.
wonder if he goes, well, the market's not there for me right now. I'll just take what's left of Colorado's cap for a 1-year deal, try to win a
Mm.
second cup, and then go to the market again next year.
It's
'Cause
probably
there
too
was
late
a-
now, though.
Because there was they have 3.9, so obviously he'd be taking a severe discount to do this. But like, say he comes out with another 90-point season or whatever he was at, right, and does it again, proving like, oh, I can do this multiple times over. This wasn't like flash in the pan for me. Like, and especially like this year, there was a lot more available than I think there would have been normally. At least going into it, like in the last day or two, like Malkin was still potentially on the board until Pittsburgh re-signed him. Like there was a lot of like names that you weren't expecting to be there, which is why we're at this point where like $900 million has been spent. So like maybe it's in his best interest to go just sign a cheap 1-year deal on a cup favorite again, in this case Colorado, and then just try again next year.
I'm just seeing this. You put Vinny Trocheck as a reason why the Rangers were a winner at UFA
Well,
Day.
So
Are you
okay.
insane?
Well, because they didn't actually pay as much for him as I thought they paid for him. I thought they were
It's
doing
7
like
years, man.
7 years, but at like 5.6. Like that's not terrible. That's not terrible.
That's a terrible
for one thing.
deal.
It's
Are you
not that
insane?
bad. It's not
Bro,
that
he's
bad.
like 33 years old.
Is he really that old?
He's
He's 29.
Yeah.
He's 29. Okay. Like
Okay, well, he
settle
looks
down.
33, okay? So I'm judging him on that.
He does look very old.
He
but
does
he
look
is
old,
not-
and he's not
he's
JP
short.
Miller or Brian Strome.
He's short
He's
and
short.
very feisty. He's a feisty
They
love that in
2C,
New
so
York.
he will probably thrive quite well.
I'm sure he will do perfectly fine with their reigning Hart contender, Artemi Panarin, as most of those top line guys do. But that's insane. I would not put them in my winners. I would put them in my losers, if anything, because they stood to lose so many guys in free agency. Like they lose Andrew Kopp to Detroit, and they paid a pretty decent penny for him. Did you guys see Jacob Trouba's tweet about Andrew Kopp?
Oh no.
Because he like replied to a video of like Ryan Strome going, and then he's like, "Oh, such a hard worker. Hate to see you go." And then he replied to his own quote tweet, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and then he tags Andrew Kopp, and he's like, "Nice to rekindle the fire with you, bud. I'm shocked to see you going back to Michigan," like sarcastically.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's so good.
Oh, oh God, like we talked about Vegas losing. Do you want to know how much of a loser they are? They've started using
Always.
Bruce There It Is on a tweet about Bruce
I
Cassidy.
did see that. That is
Which, shut up. Like Vegas, shut the hell up. Know your
that's a bit
place.
pathetic, frankly.
Get out of here.
That's them
They
desperate
love
to
steal content from other teams.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, in defense of them, as much as I don't want to, every single team in the NHL stole the pregame siren from them.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to steal a few things, but Bruce There It Is does feel a bit on the nose. Like
that's
it was
clearly
such a
blatant,
Vancouver
like,
thing.
Yeah, it's not even they're not even trying. Like,
well, because also like Bruce Boudreau was also in several other teams. So was Bruce Cassidy, and not a single other market did a Bruce There It Is chant. It happened in Vancouver organically. So it seems like of all the things to steal,
yeah, they're
pushing it a bit.
Yeah,
so, I don't
really
know about
weird.
that.
One winner was also Tampa Bay. Good Lord, they won.
Yes,
they
but
won
not-
by not
but not-
acquiring anybody.
By not acquiring anybody, by losing people, and by doing what they always do, which is nail the third contracts on a bunch of people. Because Anthony Cirelli at 6.25 for 8 years, steal. Eric
Holy
Cernak
cow,
at 5.2 for 8 years, steal. Even Sergachev at 8.5 for 8 years, complete steal. Like, goddamn, they can't keep getting away with it, but they do.
Yeah, they
somehow.
Because they keep losing people too.
Because they keep
losing people, and then they just have another one who's even better, like just sitting in the minors.
Yeah, they're waiting.
They're waiting.
It's like a line.
Yeah.
Just wait for next year when they flip Vlad Nemesnikov or Brandon Hagel for even better players. It's going to happen. Nicholas Paul was obviously extended because he needed like a better contract, but he was way better of a fit in Tampa than Brandon Hagel was. I would not be shocked if Brandon Hagel gets moved for a coup, even though they paid two first-round picks for him. I am certain Julian Breesbaugh will find a way to monetize him so that they are just set for life, as they always tend to do.
Yeah, straight up. Like
Bastards.
they will never, like, again, they might win like 4 more cups
7
before any of this core retires. Like, good
Kinda
Lord.
seems like it. When you have Andrei Vasilevsky back there, it's kind of like it's the Demko thing, right? Like you have the building block right there. You have the stud goalie. All they have to do is just make sure their top 6 is healthy. It wasn't healthy in the Cup Finals, and they couldn't three-peat. But damn, going into next year, you have all these core guys signed long term. You don't have to worry about it. You have Brent Seabrook coming off your books soon enough. You can trade that for an asset. Like, goddamn.
Yeah.
Must be nice being a fan of a team that knows what cap space is and how to weaponize it, because the Canucks certainly don't do that.
Maybe next year, guys.
Maybe. Hey, there's always next year. This year, it's off to golfing.
Yeah, we should ask the question, because we actually have. I don't think we've mentioned JT Miller even on this entire show, which is kind of impressive.
Do we have to?
I want to more.
It's
I just want to know where.
Exhausting.
I agree, but I just want to think. I just want to ask you guys if any player is going anywhere at this point. We'll even just broaden it to any of the players that have been on the market here. Like, where's your prediction at? Like, who are you thinking's going?
I don't think any of them are going at this point. I think they screwed themselves by signing a bunch of guys and capping themselves out. I think the only way that you can move any of them, like Myers, OEL, or Miller, is cash in, cash out. So I think the only way you're getting rid of Miller is for someone that makes equally as much, because they waited till when every other team in the league is capped out. And that's not going to work, because you're not trying to flip Miller for another cash in deal. You're trying to flip him for young assets. And the time to do that was at the draft or leading up to free agency day. And they didn't do it. So now we're looking ahead to, I guess, I don't know how many months now until
there is still
they
time
trade him at the next trade deadline.
Yeah. Like, we did talk about how, like, the Islanders did nothing. The Devils kind of really didn't do much. Like, and those have been two of the teams that were very interested in Miller at certain points. So it's like, they might be like, in the next couple months, they might be like, crap, we got absolutely nothing. We need to trade for somebody. Right. So it's still like possible. It's definitely looking a lot slimmer here. I'm thinking right now, and especially because like it's been brought up a little bit more, people are apparently like there's been discussions about like Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland in particular. Apparently, I don't think OEL is going anywhere. If
they manage
Jim
to,
Rutherford and Patrick Allvin managed to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson's contract, just give them GM of the Year award immediately. Like, don't wait for the season to start. Just give it to them because that would be insane. But yeah, like I'm thinking right now, it seems a lot more likely that like a Connor Garland is going to go, especially because there is a few more players that kind of fit his profile on the team now than there was, say, a week ago with guys like Mikheyev, with guys like Kuzmenko. Like there's clearly more players who kind of suit that style than before where he was the only one. So Garland's a bit more expendable now. I think it might be more likely that he goes, which would be too bad. I quite like him, but hey, if you can get a young right-handed defenseman for Connor Garland, who fits which like clearly helps like a spot the Canucks need the most help in. Sure. Are you all that mad about it? Probably not. Like that's a decent sort of decision to make here.
Yeah, but also your top six can't actually like how do you replace Connor Garland's 5v5 scoring? You don't really have anyone. Like right now,
you have to hope Mikheyev can.
Well,
like, that's right. There you go.
So this is like my whole issue. Like when I was tweeting about it, like this is like the team is not in any position to be making $5 million bets on players, because if you have to get rid of Garland to bring in like a better defenseman, you have nothing replacing him except more bets. You're betting that Niels Höglander returns to his first season form and produces at a Garland-like rate, or you're hoping Podkolzin takes a step forward, but there's no guarantee he might. There's no guarantee that Andrei Kuzmenko will be a top six forward. He could return to Russia because he sucks. Like these are all just like bets on bets on bets on bets, and the team is not in a position to be making those bets. It's very concerning when you hear Jim Rutherford like talking about like their deadline and being like, he didn't exactly say this is the only reason they got Mikheyev, but when he's like, yeah, he's fast and he penalty kills, it's kind of like, did they really just watch what the Canucks did over the past few years and say, we need to spend $5 million for a penalty killer? Like that's red flags flying up over and over.
It's risky. I do think that I think there is a larger upside to Mikheyev's game than like then might have been shown in a place like Toronto, where they had such a bona fide elite top six that he was never going to get that chance there. And especially like if you look at like the Canucks have traded with Toronto quite a few times of late.
Yeah.
Like Josh Levo, when he came to the Canucks, he was pretty darn good for what he was for what he cost them and what he was like, what his role was. He was quite good up until the injury. The leg injury. And like Travis Dermott, we haven't gotten a lot of Travis Dermott yet, but like the short time that they've had him, he's been pretty good. Like he's been a decent fit. And yeah, so like I think with Mikheyev in particular, it's a case of like he's a good player who just doesn't have the room to like the space to spread his wings as much as he could in a market like Vancouver that will give him more opportunities and allow him to do more. So, like, I think it's possible, but you're right. They're making a bet. They're making a pretty strong bet on a guy who does not have the track record yet. And that's worrying. But, like, at this point, you're with the team and where they're at. It's like, well, if you're going to make bets, this is a better bet than I would expect normal. They're like, yeah, Jay Beagle's going to score 20 goals. Like,
that is the one upside is like previously you're like the team betting on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. You're like, this is a terrible fucking bet on a 31-year. Like I say this as a 32-year-old, like as the resident elderly man, I would never bet on myself to have a resurgence at 33 because I feel like I'm falling off a cliff every waking day. So at least with Mikheyev, it's like, okay, you're signing someone who's a bit younger, who has like a good like underlying metrics. It's a better player archetype that you're betting on to, either be the same or improve instead of like you're saying, Jay Beagle or, Lucas Spiza after having 2 terrible seasons to suddenly be better and signing him to a 4-year deal. Same with Derek Dorsett. Like, it's just like, I get like bad, like juju, and UFA day one, pretty bad juju. I don't know about you guys, but anyway, I think we'll probably wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Didn't get into all the teams because, like I said, we would be here for 9 to 12 hours going through them all. And knowing us, we would.
Duck signed Ryan Strome. Like, no one.
Wait, did he actually? Did they actually?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. I had no idea where he signed.
I don't get that signing at all. I don't really know how that helps Anaheim, but okay.
That is the thing. This is also why we didn't go through all the teams, is that we don't know, so we don't understand what the Canucks team direction is, let alone, like, what the fuck is Philly doing? What the fuck is Anaheim doing? What the hell is Detroit doing? Like, there's so many of these teams where, like, we could probably spend 30 minutes just being like going over their past 2 years of like moves and going, what's the plan? And that's a bit taxing if you haven't noticed when we try to discuss the Vancouver Canucks. But if you ever want to hear us discuss the Canucks on platforms other than the CreaseCast or patreon.com/CreaseCast, you can find me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter, where I post snappy, witty remarks about the Canucks and get shit on by a bunch of people who like to bury their heads in the sand. Lachlan, where can they find your work, sir?
You can also find me at Canucks Army. I've wrote a lot of articles there over the last few days.
Sure did, bud. Got to pay rent somehow.
Got to pay rent somehow. Exactly. I wrote about Patrick Alvin's press conference after the first day of free agency yesterday. Wrote a little bit about Colin Delia and Eric Goodbranson's contract. And go check that out. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more content in the next couple of weeks, especially as before everyone goes off for vacation officially.
Yep. Good. And then Jamie, where can the folks find your stuff too?
You can find me on Twitter at _Jamie K. Lowe and on Instagram at Jamie K. Lowe Eats.
Hell yeah. Where's the latest Jamie K. Lowe Eats? Like, I hadn't seen anything lately. And
I'm
starving.
Yes.
Jamie.
Well, you haven't been a follower for very long, so you can just scroll.
You know, I did that like a while ago, and I almost like accidentally double clicked one from like, months and months ago, but that's like my greatest fear.
On food,
like,
that's fine. You can do that.
Food is fine.
I know, but like,
because it could have accidentally shown up on your explore page, and
that's true. But like,
liked it.
There's like an innate fear. I think I did this like maybe in like the early years of Instagram.
Yeah.
Where like I think someone on like my dodgeball team or something like signed up, and I was like, oh, like let's see. I think they might know someone. I was like just like doom scrolling, and then like I liked a picture from like when Instagram was first created, like 4 years earlier. And like they didn't have that many pictures, but like it was clearly like scrolled all the way down, like past like 30 pictures, and I was like, okay, this is awkward as shit.
Oh no, yeah, exactly, right, yeah.
Like,
also,
I'm not a weirdo. Just scrolling.
I will say, I feel like you buried the lead. I want to hear so much more about this dodgeball team you were on. How it's never been brought up.
We should do dodgeball team.
This is off the post content for sure.
I will reveal our jerseys that I designed on our next episode of the CreaseCast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Until then, folks, I am Cody Sievertson. This is the CreaseCast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Oh, and also thanks to our guest, David Quadrelli, for popping by. I really appreciate it. Check out his work as well on Canucks Army and Daily Faceoff and his Twitter. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.